Hello folks, I'm here with Tony Clark that developed the PlaneSWING. This is an amazing device. As you know, we've been testing athletes for over 30 years. And here today we're going to talk to Tony about golfers' performance. Tony, how are you?
Ross, I'm really well, thanks very much indeed. And I'm delighted I've got a chance to meet you as well, because
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff you're talking about is off the charts. And I think people are going to be pretty excited by what you've got to say.
I've been involved in the sports performance market, Tony, for a long time, and also the rehab market. And when I looked at your device, a lot of light bulbs went on over my head. So tell the folks about it.
Hoops have been around for 40 odd years. You know, there's nothing unique about a circle, I think it's fair to say. But the golf swing does remain a circle in all that time. But there have been a number of changes in golf. There have been changes in, professionals have become, dare I say, more professional. Diets have improved. One of the reasons for that is there's a lot of transatlantic travel involved, so it's very important that they arrive wherever they're going refreshed. As I always say to people, you know, when you talk about soccer stars and you talk about NFL players and everything else, for a golfer, every game is an away game. You know, so I think that's pretty important. So you've got to be in good shape, yeah. So, and also it's a bit of an endurance test, of course, because you're doing, 5 or 6 days by the time you've travelled. You've played in the Pro-Am, you then play in the 4-round tournament, and you've got to get yourself on a plane and get the hell out of there. So it's a bit of a stressful role. It sounds glamorous, but it's
No. We were doing, our program that we're looking at. I looked at it when light bulbs went on over my head at the PGA tournament in Disney World, where I met Dr. Tom LaFountain. I had no idea how far they travel in 3 days. Yeah. How many, the repetitive stress injuries that they're covering over 24 to 26 miles. So I started looking at golf as an endurance sport back then. Yeah. And it's sort of tying into what we're talking about. So you're spot on. I'm fascinated by this.
Well, this is where, this piece of equipment, one of the things that excites me about it is that it genuinely ingrains emotion. So you can see quite dramatic changes with whether it's a beginner or a major winner. I mean, it's that's how broad it is. So the major winners and the better golfers out there are looking to really maintain their existing motion and ingrain it further. And then you look at the beginners who are out there who are really learning emotion for the first time. And the messages that PlaneSWING and the use of the power slider, in particular the slider, send to the brain are highly complex, but repetitive use does deliver rapid and sustained improvement.
Well, yeah, and that's why when I saw this, before I got to talk to you, light bulbs went on over my head, so I don't want to lose anybody, but this is what I saw right away. From working with brain injury patients or rehab patients, I know that repetitive swinging that you're doing grows new brain tissue that we could look at in real time in an fMRI right now. So the development, or something called neuroplasticity, when somebody's in a PlaneSWING, and if we had the money to put them in an fMRI and put them in your PlaneSWING and then wait 3 months, their brain would have different connections. Okay, neurons that fire together, wire together. The PlaneSWING wires those neurons and grows new tissue. So when the golfer gets out on the course, he'll be able to focus on that form a lot better. Since I've been in the rehab market with vets and brain injury patients, I'm very familiar with the neurologists that I work with that talk about the rehab process, and everything I'm telling you right now the PlaneSWING does, that's what they're rehabbing the troops with, coming back with brain injuries. So when I saw your product, I went, oh my God, I get this. Right. And now I'm sitting next to you.
Right. Yeah. No, well, it's funny because when we first met, we didn't realize that we had that connection with the troops either. The fact that,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I've got these PlaneSWINGs in Walter Reed, I've got them in Center for the Intrepid in San Antonio. And we've been working with these troops who have been coming back with, obviously with serious injuries.
Dude, that's amazing.
And those that are golfers and those that aren't. But what it works for them, it works on a balance perspective.
Big time.
It's almost like training wheels for a bicycle.
Well, that's what I said. When I first saw it, I'm like, I was thinking a rehab device. And I mean, I never picked up a golf club in my life, but I like to look at it. I mean, I like to look at it from different angles. So when I saw what it was doing, I was, oh, okay, I get it. And I just started drilling down on everything you were doing before I met you. So it makes total sense from a rehab standpoint. It makes total sense how a golfer can improve his swing and dial in his focus and his stroke using this. It's truly amazing.
It's one of those, I'm sort of one of these lay guys who, I have this product, I own this product. We use a power slider as well, not a roller, and that's really important because it means that it engages the core. But I'm not fully understanding the internal mechanism that is delivering the sort of exciting results that I keep scene with this, you
Of
know.
course,
and,
I understand, yeah.
and I get people come to me and they say, do you know, I'm playing around a golf, it's all going south, and I just imagine myself in the plane swing again. And I go, oh, that's quite interesting. And it actually does work like that. If you imagine yourself back in that plane swing that you were working on 2 days ago or a day ago, whatever it might be, it has something goes on.
It's called brain-derived neurotropic factor. You actually grow. That's the miracle grow.
Brain what?
It's called brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's something we test for. And
Right.
once we enhance that, we could grow new brain tissue. So here's a very simple way to think about it. If I'd told somebody to write their name in their opposite hand, and they would write it, it would be all over the place. But if they kept writing it, it would become clearer by the end of the week. That's how PlaneSWING works.
Right, right.
It hardwires. That person that's using their opposite hand, writing their name, and they all of a sudden get efficient at it, they're growing new brain tissue on a cellular level. When you stay in the plane swing and you use it consistently, you're growing new brain tissue. Then at the end of the day, you're not hitting the golf ball and causing problems and hitting all those buckets of balls where you're having the repetitive stress injury. You've got this smooth functional motion.
Well, we're in 72 countries.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're in
Wow, that's
72
great.
countries. Like I say, beginners to major winners. A lot of golf instructors use it because
Right.
they understand it, and it's very simple to use. Some tour players, Dustin Johnson, world #1. Nice.
Wow, there you go.
Tommy Fleetwood bought one halfway through his season last year. Look at the stats. That's there. Sean McKeel, major winner. Darren Clark won the Open Championship, former Ryder Cup captain, bought one. So we're up there at that level, which is great. Just wish they could cart them around with them. You know,
it makes total sense to me because the practice and the movement, the functional movement is what's so important. Folks, remember when I told you that when you immerse yourself in 2 different fields, innovation just bubbles to the surface? Well, when I saw Tony, when I saw your PlaneSWING device, I started thinking about triathlons and cycling, and cycling is, you know, a tradition in Europe for hundreds of years. Boone Lennon, a downhill skier, designed these handlebars that the triathlon community or the Tour de France community in Europe picked up in 1984, and it changed cycling forever. You know, these handlebars, because when you're a downhill skier and you're aerodynamic, you know, the traditional cyclist didn't want to have anything to do with it until I think Greg LeMond in '84 used them on, put these devices on his bike during a time trial, and he had the fastest time trial. So technology and innovation changes the landscape of traditional sports.
You know, I'm hearing now in the golf arena where people are actually getting fitted for shoes based on their physical movement, which is quite interesting.
I believe that.
I think High Tech tried it a while ago. I'm not sure if that's still going, but it still does seem to make perfect sense to get the maximum generation of power through the shot.
Your device, I always tell people that we are all biochemically unique, but also everybody has a different size, different shoe size, different height, different weight. Well, your program, everybody is biomechanically unique. So you help maybe a guy that's 5'6" or a woman or somebody that's 6 foot all customize their swing based on their biomechanical individuality. That's why I think this is like a sweeping generalization for all golfers, whether they're 6 or 60.
Well, this is why we have sliders of different weights. But this is quite interesting. The reason I invented the slider and why it doesn't roll is because you need to engage the core. It's too easy. If this were to roll, for example, which it doesn't, it's a solid rubber piece on a aluminium shaft, right? And the idea is that when you begin the swing and you start to take it away, it sticks ever so slightly. So you have to engage the core. So suddenly the body now becomes connected with the arms and the shoulders. So it gives you a much more connected and powerful motion, and it's far more consistent with the way the golf swing should work. Whereas previously, you know, the roller was used and people would get excessive forearm rotation. They'd start casting. They'd then have a reverse pivot. And this addresses most of that, which is pretty amazing. And it was a really simple, it literally came to me in a day. I just happened to be using the other product. I thought, hang on a minute, this is clearly flawed, you know, and it was a frustration.
That's great.
So, yeah, just little things little things like that. And we do different weights as well, and we do different heights. And we also have a junior unit coming out later on this year for kids from 5 to 9.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Folks, another thing that really got my attention when I saw Tony's PlaneSWING device was there was a group of us that swam 12.6 miles around the Keys, and I had a professional swim coach that videotaped me underwater on my form. Tony videotapes his athletes. And one thing I learned that changed my stroke, something very simple, and this is why it resonated with the PlaneSWING. I was digging too deep in the water. I didn't have a lot of power right here. Well, when the coach filmed me, he made me bring my arm in. And you could do this yourself, folks. Now I have power. I could pull through the whole stroke instead of digging deep and causing a rotator cuff injury. I actually pulled across my body and out to my pocket. He taught me that. He videotaped me as Tony does with the PlaneSWING, and that rhythm that I picked up, that change in my form, that little change accelerated my swim time by like 20 minutes. It took me 5 hours to finish the race around the Keys, but I've been around many competitive swimmers since that time, and they have similar injuries, repetitive stress injuries to golfers. Now, another area that I wanted to talk about was cycling. I could not keep up with the major cyclists going up a hill. Again, I had to get coached. What did the coach tell me? He put me on a stationary bike, and he videotaped me, and he watched me pedal. Then he took one of my legs out and made me pedal one leg at a time. What he found out was I was pushing down too hard, and I wasn't making a complete rotation, is what you talk about. The form, my form was improper. So the cycling coach told me something that always stayed with me. Make believe you're wiping gum off the bottom of your shoe and pull back, and he made me do it a bunch of times. Then he put me in the cycling trainer, and I was able to make that motion with both my feet. The next workout, my next workout, when all the really great cyclists were going up on the hill, that was the first time I was able to stay with them, because I kept thinking about not getting spit out the back, and I kept thinking about, okay, get the gum off my shoe, get the gum off my shoe. Before you know it, we got to the top of the hill, and I was with everybody. It took me 10 years to be a top cyclist, and that one little coaching tool, that one little change in my form made, it was like night and day.
It's how these little, I would call them gems,
Exactly.
resonate in the brain.
There you go.
And then transfer them to emotion. Because when people are inside PlaneSWING, and when people are playing golf, one of the things that most amateurs do is they get lateral with their hips. Okay, so immediately they lose balance and the weight goes onto the right side, and then they've got a bit of a battle trying to get themselves back. So they don't get the rotation of the hips and the body in the same way they should do. And you know, one little thing that I say to people often is, as you rotate, put your right buttock behind you. Okay. And feel as though you're crushing a bug on the inside of your right foot. I'm talking right-handers here, okay, on the inside of your right foot. And it's just little things like that. And you can say that, and suddenly you step back and look, and it's a transformation. And it sounds like silly information, you know, put your right pocket backwards, you know, put your butt backwards, or feel like you're crushing a bug on the inside of your right foot. But that translates into a physical movement, which affects the rest of the movement.
Yeah, they call it long-term potentiation. How do we hardwire? You know, you're a good coach. You play the game. You know these little gems because you're basically telling somebody a story. And our brains are hardwired for stories, Tony. I'm always trying to take complex data, as you know, and drip the science on people, or using your analogy, those little gems. You're basically telling them a story that they can relate to. So when the guy told me to get the gum, or you're saying crush the bug, that's something they get immediately, and you could change their form overnight that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah. And people often say, you know, they say, oh no, just give me one thought.
Okay, yeah.
I just want one thought as I go out there. And if you can give them that one thought that actually, unbeknown to them, impacts 2 or 3 elements of the swing.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Then, and this is where, I mean, seniors tour players, I've got a few guys who are moving on to the seniors tour who see this as an important part of their program, because
big time.
you know, they need to make sure they maintain that level of rotation. And I actually think that really it's the senior golfers out there who absolutely love the sport. And heavens, you know, we're here in Florida and it's just full of snowbirds for about 7-8 months of the year. And they come down and I see them, and their rotation's restricted. They're not hinging their wrists. They're trying to guide the ball down the fairway, you know. And all they need to do, and yet there is an acceptance amongst them that, well, it's because I'm 65, it's because I'm 55, it's because I'm 75, whatever. And I think that's appalling.
No, I agree with you.
Frankly.
When I'm taking care, when I'm developing high-level interventions for people, most of the people are told by doctors you're just aging. But I've seen in anti-aging centers, people in their 60s and 70s still have that gleam in their eye, and still their bodies are resonating. They're still fit, wanting to ride their bikes around Europe. So once they understand what you just said, once they understand the new research that we're talking about, I think it's going to change their thinking. You know?
Well, I'd ask people to look at, so sometimes I wouldn't ask your average golfer to necessarily I wouldn't blend them with a swing of, say, a Rory McIlroy or a Dustin Johnson or Tiger Woods. But what I would ask a lot of senior golfers out there to do is to look at the performances of the best players on the seniors tour. They are still athletes. Bernhard Langer, absolutely phenomenal. A lot of the other guys that are coming into the seniors tour, there's big money. There's big money on that tour. And they need to be at their peak performance.
Exactly.
If you come in there anything less than 100%, you're going to get lost in reality. And we see that. They come in and then they disappear.
Right.
And the bad news for a lot of the guys on the seniors tour is that because the whole fitness piece has become so much more important, those guys who are hitting 48, 50, that are now coming into the seniors tour are significantly fitter than the people that have been coming into the seniors tour for the last 10 years.
See that?
So all of those are going to get left behind. So, you've got your Bernhard Langers, you've got, Freddie Couples with all of his back issues is still doing it, for want of a better word. He's maintaining his flexibility unbelievably well. So I think there's going to be significant pressure on the better players to compete. And they need to work on the sort of stuff that you're talking about in terms of the nutrition, understanding what's going on inside the gut, etc.
Yeah, the gut's the second brain, and you and I are going to be able to take once we get this out there, we're going to able to look at golfers on a cellular level, and everybody accuses me of losing people, but I just want to say it's our research labs that we've partnered with. This has never been what we're talking about. This testing that we're doing has never been done before in golfing, so I'm really excited about this.
Right.
Anytime like we're first out of the blocks or on the tip of the spear or something, that gets me out of bed in the morning.
So it was just very interesting when we had breakfast the other morning and you kind of like threw it away. It was like, yeah, the gut's the second brain. I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, the gut is the second brain. Yeah. I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean. I partnered with a research lab in 1996 called the Great Smokies Diagnostic Lab, and we were looking at the intestinal tract, so that's how long it's been going on. Medicine, the microbiome, is all the good flora in our intestinal tract. Now, I know that in order to get a body to resonate performance-wise, we have to balance out the intestinal tract. So because a lot of people are on a bad diet and they're nutrient deficient, their intestinal tract, those beneficial bacteria, they get out of balance and it affects how they feel. So from a golfer standpoint, if you and I were to test a bunch of golfers and find out their intestinal tract is out of balance and we rehab their intestinal tract, that will definitely affect their performance. In fact, the intestinal tract is ground zero for performance, but you never hear anybody talk about it. Now from a brain injury standpoint, depression, bipolar disorder, I always start with my doctors checking somebody's intestinal tract, and we get them off the medication, those labels disappear. Now you and I are functioning on the performance side. So think about it. You are not what you eat, you are what you absorb. So if your intestinal tract is out of balance, you're not pulling nutrients out of food, right? Where's your body going to get the nutrients? After the golfer goes to sleep at night, he's going to mine nutrients out of his own muscle tissue. So again, I don't want to get too complicated, but really, if you think about it, you are not what you eat, you are what you absorb. The intestinal tract, if it's out of balance, will affect your mood and how you feel. Psychiatry for years has been just treating the head and not the body.
You're not what you eat, you are what you absorb.
Yeah, isn't that easy? Was that technical for me?
Yeah.
That was easy, right?
I can relate to that. Okay. Yeah, I can just about get that. But when you look at the tour players, I mean, there's some staggering stats out there, and I haven't got them right off the top of my head, but I can tell you that if your average score through the year, for argument's sake, is 0.25 difference either way, it can be losing your card or retaining your card.
Wow,
I mean, that's how it is that tight. It can be, winning $200,000 to winning $1.2 million. That it's just incredible. It's golf. I keep saying to people all the time, I've got a lot of friends in soccer. Golf is the ultimate meritocracy. You either do it or you're out. If you don't make the cut, you go home. It's as simple as that. You can't sit on the bench and still get your salary at the end of the month. You can't, you bust your ankle,
you're done.
You're done.
I got you. You made a great point saying it's always a one-way game. Physiologically, I would love to do a study on 10 players, look at all their nutritional levels, look at their intestinal tract and their brain chemistry pre and post season. And like the lab that I work with, we've tested tens of thousands of people. I have those results from snipers, from airline pilots, from surgeons, people in high stress occupations. That's what I've been studying for years. And I've also been an endurance athlete studying them. So when I look at golf as the endurance sport, I had no idea the intensity of what the game brought, of what these players go through.
So when you see these, for want of a better word, car crash incidents, say in golf, like Jordan Spieth at the Masters on that par 3, when he was cruising to victory and he throws in a 7 on a par 3. Rory McIlroy, similar in the Masters. I mean, what happens there when we can all make a bad decision? But to follow a bad decision with a bad decision and a bad decision.
All stress is cumulative. So your prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain, allows the decision making, allows to call on the next golf shot. If you go into that last part of the tournament that you just mentioned and you're under stress, the circulation to that part of the brain moves to another area and you can't make decisions. You can't focus. So what's their blood sugar at that point? What are we can measure the neurotransmitters in their brain. Are their neurotransmitters up at that level? When I met Dr. Tom LaFountain, I looked at golf as the endurance sport. He told me about the back 9. So my feeling is, how do I get a golfer to the back 9 nutritionally and with the focus of a sniper? Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. So we have to look at blood sugar levels, insulin levels, neurotransmitter levels, the electrochemical messengers in our brain, because the more stress you're under day in and day out, when you get to where Rory was, you're not going to fire on all cylinders, and then the stress will overwhelm your decision-making process or your muscular functionality. You know what I mean? Like you were showing me in your plane swing. That's why when you're under stress, whether it's an officer involved in a shooting, what does he do? He goes back to what he learned on the range. He goes back to what his instructors are saying. Why your machine, the plane swing, is so important. When you're under stress, you're going to go back to this stroke.
You look at Rory, what was amazing about Rory was, first of all, his massive loyalty to his caddy, because at the time, people were blaming his caddy, saying his caddy should have done this, caddy should have done that. And, you know, because Rory had never been in that position before, and Rory marvelously turned around and said, well, my caddy's never been in that position before either, so give him a break.
Good for him.
And then the next thing, he wins the US Open.
Yeah.
So he managed to turn that negative into a massive positive somehow in his mind.
Right.
And goes out, never lost belief in his own ability, quite clearly.
Right. So you see the SWAT team members that have to, God forbid, kill somebody, or a soldier in battle, or a surgeon that loses a patient, or an EMS worker that works a traumatic scene. What we have to do to these golfers is teach them how to wrap that up in a little package, put it over your shoulder, because golf is a game of recovery. If you let that get to you before the next shot, you're done. So if we could elevate the nutritional system, if we could correct all the nutritional deficiencies and have them mentally and physically as fit before they go into that back 9, then they're going to fire on more cylinders better. Every golfer is biomechanically unique and biochemically unique. And what Tony and I are trying to get across is that if we improve a golfer's nutrition, correct all the deficiencies, change their intestinal tract where they're pulling nutrients out of food more efficiently, then when they get in that spot where they really have to focus and the crowd is there and their stress levels are through the roof, they're going to be able to deliver the performance that they were trained using the plane swing. Tony, thanks for sharing this with us, and it was so great to meet you and talk about what we can do for golf.
Thank you. Well, I think you've got my juices flowing, and I'm certainly excited about the whole thing. And what it's given me, I think, is a real understanding of the impact of this product physically and what it's doing inside, and how it combines with nutrition. Right. And what I want to do is to get people to go to PlaneSWING.com, and there will be a link on there through to the information that you've given today, so that people can see that there's a holistic approach that needs to be taken to golf and to the whole performance element. So for me, it's been a massive educational experience, bit of a steep learning curve. Probably have to step back and have a look at it again, but
Well,
really appreciate it.
we'll keep up this dialogue. Folks, thanks for joining us. See the Russ Scala YouTube channel and Scala Precision Health. We'll see you soon.